We are now entering the biggest recession, as far as I can see, since the 1930s. We saw during lockdown the economy absolutely collapsed by 25%. Post-lockdown, as I've been saying for the last couple of months, we've got a surge, but net 2020 will see the size of the economy 10% smaller than 2019. And then going forward, I'm not expecting at all strong economic growth in 21, 22, 23. If anything, it'll be less than 1% per annum, because we're going to have 3 or 4 million unemployed. And then we're going to get higher and higher inflation. In other words, to finish off, stagflation, economic stagnation, and inflation, the worst of all worlds.
Do you think, the way I see it, Jonathan, is I had some sympathy for the government as this crisis originally unfolded. They're suddenly plunged into a completely unprecedented situation, dealing with a virus that at one point was killing 1,000 people a day in this country. So I've got sympathy with the fact that they ordered the lockdown, they ordered some drastic measures because they didn't quite know what they're dealing with. What I don't have sympathy with is right now, when I keep saying this, but on Monday, 8 people died of this disease, and that's in a population of 67 million, and yet we still seem to be subjected to these draconian measures. The country's in terror. It's also paralysed. We're in an economic mess, and yet Boris doesn't seem to be doing anything to try to get us back to some sort of semblance of normality and to save our economy. That's what I do object to, the way the government now seems to be behaving when it is only dealing with a relatively mild virus.
One very brief point on the virus, but we won't dwell on that. We're here to talk about economics. It's always been a mild virus. And I tell you, once we get the real analysis, it will be shown that it was not 1,000 people dying a day, because we've got countless examples where many of the death certificates showing COVID, the actual death was nothing to do with COVID.
You're talking about the Public Health England rubbish system of collating these deaths, which
for example. Anyway, you're absolutely correct. It is a bad cold. At worst, it's a bad cold, and even the publicly used statistics now, as you say, are tiny. They're far smaller than colds. They're far smaller than the influenza. As far as I'm concerned, indeed, I go with a guest of one of your other colleagues, Mike Graham. Peter Hitchens was on saying that the power has gone to the politician's head. And I couldn't agree more.
But it's not a bad cold, though. I mean, I know 3 guys in their 50s who've been in intensive care, and one of them's probably never going to come back again. And that never happens with people with colds.
This is all.
But I know 3 people personally in their 50s.
I've had it. I tested positive for it.
But you weren't in intensive care, were you?
No. So that proves that sometimes it's actually, it was relatively mild with me.
Yeah.
But my point is that we're not in any way diminishing the tragedy and the importance of everyone who's died from this. People have died, and as you say, Ash, people have got very sick from it, including the Prime Minister. So no one is underrating the importance of all those figures. But relatively speaking, in a country of 67 million, the numbers have always been very small. In the world, there are 7.5 billion people.
I don't think it's as small as you think, though.
Well, wait a second. There are 750 billion people 7.5 billion people in this planet, and 650,000 have died. Now, that's horrible, but that is vanishingly small. Would you agree, Jonathan?
Kevin, in 2009, we had another coronavirus. We've had coronaviruses for the last 30 years. We had H1N1. And in America, I happen to know the American stats, and come on, they're going to be broadly similar in scale, as it were, to our own. They had 60 million cases. And did you hear anything about it? Whereas COVID-19 in America, they've had 5 million cases. And just like in the UK and across most of the world, they closed down the economy. Something is seriously amiss. But that is by the by. That was March, April, May, June. Where we are now is, I repeat, you're absolutely correct. The numbers are infinitesimally small now. Why do we not have a 100% reopening of the economy?
So that's what you do, is it? Is that what you do? Just open everything, forget everything?
I would do it immediately.
Yeah.
And 9.5 million people are on furlough schemes. People don't realise that now that we've come into August and employers with furlough employees having to pay national insurance, and from September they're going to have to pay 10-20% of the pay. You just watch the number of jobs lost. It's going to go straight up. And that's why, and I've been saying since April, never mind the Bank of England saying it today, that we're going to see, unfortunately, an extra 1.5 to 3 million unemployed because of the economic depression that we're in and that we're going to be in for years, largely as a result of these incredible incompetence.
Can I ask you this, Jonathan, on a sort of side issue? One of the big problems, I think, about us not getting back to normal is this working from home business. London, central London at the moment looks like a ghost town. I gather other cities are the same because no one's going to work. And lots of these people who are working from home are sort of rather gloating, saying, oh, I've got my work-life balance back and I see the kids, I'm having a great time. Oh, this is the way forward. Everyone will work at home. Well, how soon will it be before employers work out, well, if they can work from home, I can outsource this to India or somewhere like that for a lot cheaper. So this working from home obsession that we've now got may well lead to even more unemployment.
And I agree 100% wholeheartedly with that. When I've been talking about 1.5 to 3 million, I was talking about getting back to relative normality. But of course, as soon as lockdown happened, within 2 or 3 weeks, every chief executive in the country was looking at his office costs and thinking, why have I got these expensive offices? And then, as you say, folk in the private sector who have been working and producing, they've been doing it perfectly well. And then the chief executives and the human resource directors are thinking, hold on a minute, why do we need these people in Hertfordshire, in Manchester, in Glasgow, when we could be going to Vietnam, to the Philippines? Yeah. By the way, I've got a guy who works for me in the Philippines.
There you go.
Has done for 3 years, and it works perfectly well. So I know it personally. It absolutely works. People, I'll tell you, it's an economic depression. People, I'm afraid to say, and you guys in the media, not enough is being let out as to what the people have let themselves in for. They should be rising up. They should be out on the street saying, let us back. Let us open our businesses. Let us go 10-pin bowling. Let us play tennis. Let us play football. Let us go to football matches. Everything. Let's go to restaurants by the barrel full. The economy needs opening up today. So when not in 3 months' time, today.
When will it hit us then properly? I mean, that's why people don't realise, because it hasn't hit us, has it? It hasn't hit bank balances.
Well, as I say, from this month, we've already seen it. Unemployment soaring already. Yeah. It's going to be more, I'm afraid to say, in September, when employers with people on furlough have to pay even more. And then when they're reopening their businesses and they realize, oh my goodness, there's far less business than there was in February before lockdown. And then on top of that, as we've just been talking about, they've already started planning on outsourcing many of the jobs. People do not realize what's going to hit them.